Welcome to Wednesday night football roundtable. It's me, Dave. How's everybody doing tonight? We're going to have a great show. We've got a special guest on, one of our original first-time, long-time viewers, Mr. Paul Sullivan, Saints fan. Paul, how are you this evening?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing good. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
It's been a long time seeing your silly posts on the side. Now we get to see your silly face. So now we understand where it all comes from. What's up, Eric? How you doing tonight?
Happy, not Tuesday. Happy Wednesday.
I know. Happy Wednesday. KD, you?
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah, you'll get fined anyway. Sean, what's up with you this evening, my friend?
Nothing much. You're just throwing off my schedule. I'm not used to these Wednesday nights.
Yeah, it's gonna probably be Wednesday nights from now on. My work schedule changed, so looks like we're gonna be doing Wednesdays from now on. So sorry, folks, but that's just the way it goes when you work. Sean, I gotta say, I love your sweatshirt. I gotta get one of those. I do have to get one of those. And Eric has the sweatshirt. KD, me and you are slacking. I think Jeff is too. We'll have to jump on board, and Paul has to jump on board. So, yeah, we'll fix that rather quickly.
Maybe because Paul's a lifelong watcher of the show, we should donate one T-shirt to him so he can represent.
Hey, that's up to you, man. That's fine with me. I have no issues. So, Paul, you'll be donated a T-shirt from the couch T-shirt. Sport that.
Just message me your size and address, and we'll get it out to you. I will spend money on you, Paul, because you're a decent human being, and Dave, I ain't giving you anything.
Sometimes he's a decent human being.
Keep talking, Sean. Sean, why don't you talk to Paul?
Paul. You are one of the most active commenters on the show. We appreciate it. We try to respond to you as much as we can. I would like to know, I do love the Saints because when I was young and growing up, they were so terrible. You at least have won a Super Bowl this century, unlike my Jets. What did you think when you got Derek Carr? Did you think this was going to be like, okay, we're ready to go, or were you apprehensive?
To be honest, I was happy because I felt after Derek Carr, we had Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, Trevor Siemian, the dude who went to the Eagles. I can't remember his name. Not important. And then he gets a lot of slander, but Derek Carr is truly not that bad. He'll still get you 28 touchdowns to 6 interceptions and 4,500 yards. I mean, so he's a good bridge until we can find our longtime next Drew Brees. So I like Derek Carr.
Hey, Paul, okay. Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah,
what were the Saints' record last year?
9-8.
And Derek Carr had 28 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
28-6 or 26-8, one of those two. Yeah,
like Russell Wilson numbers, doesn't it? And he got to 9-8.
Yeah, and he had 4,800 yards.
Except the Saints don't have the defense that I have. So I mean, we were. They were a top defense. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's okay. Your black and gold is below the real black and gold. But I love the Nathan Peterman signing. I'm looking forward to watching him play this year.
He won't play, but it's all right.
I mean, it's about as good as the Justin Fields sign. So either way you look at it.
Hey, like I said, the Bills got the only Bears quarterback that took them to the playoffs. So you're still 12-5 in my book, Eric.
And Paul, a quick, the Saints were in salary cap hell. Like probably, I think they were the worst ever team in that position.
Second to worst.
Okay. Do you think that this year they're going to be able to make a move and win the NFC South?
I'm pretty sure we're done in free agency. We made our big splash with Chase Young. We should have been able to win it last year, but I'm not going to go and sit there and say it's a guarantee. But no, I think we're done in free agency. We made our move with Chase Young and signing who we needed to sign and releasing who we needed to release. And we restructured some contracts to help with that along the way. And releasing Michael Thomas was a big help on the salary cap. And same with Marcus May. So I think we're going to be all right this year. And it's going to be a toss-up for the division because a lot of the teams are making good moves. But I'm not sold on the Falcons or the Panthers. So I think it's going to come down to the Bucks and the Saints again.
So, Paul, let me ask you a question. If you think you're done in free agency, at least the big names, I'm sure there might be a couple guys post June 1st that'll get cut. You guys might pick up or, little depth players. With the draft coming up, and the Saints, I believe, have 19 or 17?
14.
Oh, 14. Well, where do you think they go? Where do you think they look in the draft?
Offensive tackle. We need one. Although they did sort of address it with, I can't even say this dude's name, Udo, his last name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't say his name. Or cornerback would be nice since we lost our fill-in for Lattimore. So that would be nice. Since they moved Taylor inside, we really don't have another outside corner. So I could either see them going tackle or cornerback with the 14th pick. And if not, I think we also have the 50-something pick from the Broncos. We address it again there.
Okay. No, because before the show, we were doing a mock draft, and Katie had you going offensive tackle at 14.
We need tackle.
Hey, Paul, just go ahead and say thank you.
Thank you. But no, we need a tackle because if you've been following, Ramchek's knee isn't up to what it should be, and Trevor Penning is looking like a flop, and we let Pete go. So we don't have a tackle unless they move Udo out to tackle. But then that doesn't shore up the inside of the line. So tackle would be my number one go-to if I was the GM.
So, Paul, let me ask you a question. Being that Derek Carr is what Derek Carr is, and with his contract, I think you've drafted a quarterback within the first 3 rounds. I think Bo Nix ends up there. Do you agree that quarterback would be a need to start grooming somebody to replace Derek or Carr in that location?
If we can get one 3rd round or later, I'd say yes. But I think we can get Derek Carr through the contract and maybe a little like a 2-year extension after. But if we can get Bo Nix in the 3rd or 4th round, I'm all for it. I don't argue with that at all. I like Bo Nix, but I think he may go before the 3rd round as a sleeper pick in the 2nd.
I think Spencer Rattler would be your 3rd round ideal quarterback at that.
Who are the receivers?
So receivers, we have Olave. We picked up Cedric Wilson from Miami. We tendered Shaheed, so he's staying. And then I think we still have Keith Kirkwood.
A.T. Perry,
the rookie from last year who showed out at the end of the year last year. So we have some decent receivers. But I was listening, and the great Dennis Allen said they still could address that as well in the draft, which I don't really agree with. I think we have bigger needs than receiver at this point.
Yeah, I do too. I just don't know how you're going to compete in that division. Like, I mean, and I say that not because the division's way ahead of you. I obviously last year was you look at Atlanta and Carolina, and they were just not good. I mean, Atlanta's defense was good, but whether it be Heineke or Ritter, it didn't matter. They couldn't do anything. Arthur Smith goes, and because he's a god awful coach, and I mean he ended up somewhere, I don't remember where, but that offense is going to suck too. But anyway, he in that regard, I look at where they're at, and it's difficult for me to. They have to do something more than last year, and I just don't see them being overall better in order to compete with what Atlanta did. And I say that only because I still think Tampa's a good team. Don't get me wrong, and Baker Mayfield's going to do Baker Mayfield stuff, but I don't think they're going to be a 13-4 team. I think they're still going to. I don't know. It's going to be interesting though.
Now, which Saints team are we going to get next year?
That's it.
Are we going to get the first half or the second half, where in December they were rolling over teams minus the one game, which was a one-score game, I believe. So it depends, because if you look last year, Derek Carr, the month of December was phenomenal.
Yeah, I like Carr. I don't disagree with you. I like Carr. I mean, I've liked him. I liked him with the Raiders. I mean, I think that at the time that he was with the Raiders, they had the 32nd, 31st, and 30th overall ranked defense. So it really sucked for him to have to put up 34 points and still get beat 35-34. It was kind of ridiculous. But to your point, you go over to the Saints, and I'm not an Allen fan, right? Like when I look at the coaching staff down there, they're just not. That's what I get. I don't know if the players are going to do the player stuff, but coaching is a problem right now.
The coaching staff is all new almost. So obviously they brought Kubiak in from San Francisco. They brought the receivers coach in, Keith Williams from Baltimore. They got Derek Foster, the Chargers running back coach. So they've changed a lot of their coaching staff from that perspective. So I'm curious to see how it's going to affect the offense, because we have the speed to run a 49er style system and a running back that can support it. So I think it's going to be a different team in general this year. I'm finally glad we're getting out of the Pete Carmichael shadow, which was there for 15 years. So it'll be different, especially now that we have a decent running backs coach. If you saw what he's done with Eckler, and how Keith Williams was able to develop a receiver in Baltimore last year. So I think it's going to be a different team than what a lot of people are expecting this year.
Listen, so Jeff's an expert on terrible coaching and having, terrible endings of seasons. So he's obviously right up your alley with your coaching staff. The one thing you did is you addressed it and you handled it instead of just standing pat. So ideally, I'm looking forward to you guys competing. So you think Tampa Bay is the biggest threat in your division because of Baker Mayfield, but what do you think of what do you think may happen with Carolina and everybody else in that division to rule them out? Because Carolina's been aggressive in adding pieces too. So it's the quarterback in Carolina, or what has you believing Carolina's not a threat in that division?
Quarterback, 100% quarterback and coaching, because I believe they have a new coach this year as well. So it's gonna. They've added a lot of good pieces, but I wasn't sold on Bryce Young last year going number 1 overall. So I definitely think because even his best games were subpar in my opinion. I feel like there was better quarterbacks that could have played for Carolina that were on their roster that didn't play. But Atlanta, their defense has been good, but it's just their offense. And I don't know what offense you're going to get this year. You're guaranteed 4,000 yards with Kirk Cousins. I guarantee you that. But, again, he can't really win the big game.
No, Mike, Paul, I do have one question. Notwithstanding Eric talking about bad coaching when his coach coaches for 554 winning percentage every year. The one thing that I do want to say is, do you think the Saints have to get away from this Taysom Hill quarterback once a series thing? Because to me, when that happens, I mean, I know sometimes the plays can be explosive, But I think a lot of times, at least with the quarterback like Derek Carr, when it comes to rhythm, do you think that the taking him out during those series, it disrupts the offensive rhythm and it'll throw him off? I think it can create more, partial series where they end up having to punt or kick field goals as opposed to having the quarterback stay in rhythm. Just your opinion.
Yes and no. Because statistically speaking, if he gets 5 or more touches, the Saints have like an 18-1 record when he runs the ball 5 or more times. Second, I feel like with Kubiak coming in and how they like to do a lot of motions, having him in the game can help his offense. Because he's not going to throw the ball. He's not a very good passer of the ball. I'm not going to say it's going to disrupt the offense because towards the end of the year, when the Saints did go in that role, he was in the game quite a bit, and they seemed to perform better, especially in the red zone. So I'm not sure how Kubiak wants to address that, but I don't think they're going to line him up as quarterback as much, but he would definitely be in the game in some sort of fashion, probably a lot more.
Go ahead, Sean. Ask away.
All right. Here it is. As a Saint fan, I got to know this. Was it Drew Brees that made Sean Payton, or was it Sean Payton that made Drew Brees? These are the things, as a fan, I want to know what you think.
I want to say it's Drew Brees made Peyton what Peyton wanted to be. That's what I'm leaning towards. Drew Brees was the pillar of that offensive system because we saw that same offense without Peyton or Brees, and it was lackluster. So I'm going to go with Brees made Peyton.
Okay, so you can have Sean Payton back. It's like a 50-50 thing, or you would definitely want him back?
50-50 because he was there after Brees and still didn't do much.
Paul, did you like the movie about Sean Payton?
I will say that
the Netflix documentary.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't even watch it.
I do want to say that I personally think that they both I think they both kind of needed each other. I think Brees fit that style that Peyton was trying to coach, and Peyton gave him the pieces to excel. But I will say this, that Brees was already good in San Diego. So it's not, he came over from San Diego, and go ahead, Jeff.
I'm saying one season. Look, this conversation gets really old to me. The response gets old because it's chicken versus egg. But listen, in the history of the game, no quarterback has ever led the team to 3, 4, 5 Super Bowls with different coaching staffs. I know. I mean, at the end of the day, the coaches make the coaches and the players make the players. Mahomes wouldn't be Mahomes without Andy Reid, and Andy Reid obviously wasn't Andy Reid without Mahomes. But Andy Reid was a good coach. The pieces are there. Troy Aikman, I don't think Troy Aikman was ever a great quarterback, but he was a consistent quarterback on a good team that had Jimmy Johnson, right? Tom Brady with Belichick. I don't think Brady made Belichick. I think they made each other. And but he left and went to Tampa. Yeah, and he went to an all-pro team. Like that. That conversation will always baffle me because the reality is at 7-9, which the Bucks were the year before Brady got there, they still had a top 5 defense in a shit position because they're Jameis Winston threw 35 interceptions or whatever silly shit it was. Hey, Eric, not 18, all right, 35. I mean, it's a completely different story. And you can say what you want, but guess what? Winston lost on last play of the game, 3 pick sixes that season. Bottom line is this. Just so you know, Allen only has 2 pick sixes in his entire career. So that you can say what you want. But at the end of the day, no quarterback made a coach and no coach made a quarterback. I mean, what I'm saying is that in these conversations of long-term successes with coaches, it's a trade-off. This guy fits in a system, and this coach is creating that system. It's just the way it is. I mean, historically speaking, go find me a coach that has succeeded for 10 years straight with different quarterbacks. It doesn't happen, or vice versa. By the way, find me a 3-year or 3 Super Bowl winner and show me the coaches that he didn't have that were different. I mean, besides Peyton Manning, and only he won 2 Super Bowls, but on 2 different teams.
And again, I will say this. I will say this about and there are quarterbacks who transcend the coach, and Peyton Manning is one, and I think Tom Brady to some extent is, but understand why I say that. And again, it does come down to the coaching staff. It's understanding the player and understanding what they do well and allowing them to do what they do well, and not coming in and saying, okay, I don't know, Justin Fields, you are going to drop back in the pocket and you are going to stand there and throw the ball. You can't run. No, we are going to create, because this is what happens a lot of times. Coaches don't coach anymore. They coach a system and just expect to drop a round hole in a square peg and expect that it's going to work. Okay. And the fact is, if you're going to go out and have a Justin Fields on your team, well, your coaching staff better adjust to what Justin Fields does well. You can't have Justin Fields adjust to what you do well, because you're going to shorten his career, or he's never going to have one. And the Bears are notorious for that. They draft guys and they just make them play this way, and they're not the guys that are fit to play that way.
Yeah. I think it's funny because when Paul was talking about Taysom Hill, I was like, because he said, well, he can't throw the ball. It just reminded me of why the Steelers signed Justin Fields to begin with. Is he'll play Taysom Fields type football, which means he won't throw the ball, but he'll be there for those good runs. Because that's what the dude is. But anyway.
But no, but again, it does go hand in hand. And again, I think quarterbacks that win in good systems and have a good coaching staff that recognize the quarterback's strength and mold the offense to fit the quarterback to allow him to put himself and the team in a position to win and win consistently. Those are the coaching and quarterback combinations that last. And those quarterbacks are successful because they see exactly what that quarterback is and they coach to his strengths.
Joe Gibbs won how many Super Bowls? 3?
Who? Kansas City?
Joe Gibbs. He won with Mark Rippon, Doug Williams. Who else did he win with?
Joe Theismann.
Joe Gibbs was coaching for Joe Theismann?
Yeah.
That's not even fair. That dude coached like 40 decades.
But that's over a 12 or 13-year period.
Right.
The point Jeff was making was, hey, if I switch out quarterback year after year, then this guy's not going to win. It's going to take a while to get back there. Because if we're going to sit and say that, okay, you got a lot of quarterbacks and coaches that have won multiple Super Bowls.
And real quick, KD, we can go to this point even further because we go back to the 80s because you're talking about Doug Williams, right? So football's changed at the late 80s, right? Because that was the insertion of free agency. That was the insertion of salary cap. There's a lot of things that are different. And so I was really talking about this closer era. But even at that, when I look at it, like, hell, what's the dude's name in San Francisco? Seifert? Not Seifert. It wasn't Seifert. Who won all the Super Bowls with Joe Montana?
Bill
Walsh.
But that was the same team. Like he coached the same team for 4. I mean, and there was the only competitor to that team was really the Giants, right? I mean, led by, wonderful Bill Parcells and his crew of Lawrence Taylor and whatnot. But those teams were stuck together because there was no free. But anyway.
And that's why Bill Belichick was such a great coach, because he didn't have to go out and sign all-pro players, because not every all-pro player could fit in the type of system that Bill Belichick ran. And so Bill Belichick, while people might say now he's not as great of a coach as he was, the thing about Bill Belichick was when he had a Tom Brady or he had that team or whatnot, he didn't have to go out and sign $50 million a year free agents or break the bank. He could go out and draft or sign a third string guy that somebody cast to the side and he fits into that system as a starter because that's the system that he played. And that's where he put him in and he plugged him in and he identified what he did, what his strength was, and it fit that system. And he didn't have to have all pros in every position.
And
real quick, go ahead, Katie. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say the only reason why I asked that question is the five of us are supposed to be non-biased, and I wanted to get a fan's point of view.
Sure.
And we are all fans also, but that's why I asked that question.
Hey, Sean, I wasn't trying to crush the question, or I was really looking at the thing, and it just triggered me, and it wasn't whatchamacallit said in the comment where he said, obviously Breeze all day. That wasn't it just reminded me of going through numerous posts about Bill Belichick and Brady, talking about a bunch of different people, and I truly answered, like, I don't know, probably about a year and a half ago, a post for 4 days straight. It had like 75,000 comments, and it was just back and forth. And of course, because I talk the way I do, people think or assume that I'm like calling them stupid. It's not. I'm just saying that I think that's foolish to think, right? And anyway, so it was more of a triggering thing. Your question was fine. Paul's answer was perfect. I mean, it is what it is. I think it's fine. Even if Paul said it was Peyton, it's fine that they say it. That's just my opinion. I get tired because when I look at these coaches back and forth, I look at and I say, well, you could say Brady won when he left, and you could say Peyton won when he left, but look at who they left to, right? Like, look at the teams that they were on and that they left to go to. Denver had a really great defense, where Indianapolis was struggling on defense. They had some really good offensive weapons. Peyton Manning capitalized on that the second time, because the first Super Bowl he went to, they surely didn't capitalize on it, and it surely wasn't Peyton Manning at his best that won the Super Bowl against Carolina. Then on the flip, you go to look at Brady, and everybody's like, Brady was the savior. Man, you could have brought Trent Dilfer. You could have brought Brad Johnson back. You could have brought back about 30 quarterbacks in the NFL except for Jameis Winston, and they would have been a 12-5 team that year, or 12-4 team, because it was 16 games, because they were that good all the way through. I mean, they had offensive all-pros. They had defensive all-pros. And yes, of course, when Brady got there, a couple more came. You know what I mean? And so anyway, that's just my point. It was a great question. And it was a great answer by Paul. I just got triggered because I was remembering my 2.5 week.
His PTSD.
If I have to start posting trigger warnings whenever I'm going to speak, we're on the wrong program.
Yeah, it's. I'm sorry. I got to.
Every time before the show starts and Jeffrey sees Eric, it's like trigger warning, trigger warning.
Oh, I saw Eric. I was like, here we go. I don't even care. I don't even care. Paul's here. I'm going to start talking shit. Anyway, no, I'm just teasing.
So, all right. Switching gears a little bit. Is there anything else you before we switch gears, Paul? Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your Saints in terms of what you think their outlook is, just besides from what you already said?
No, because I don't have very high expectations. It's a new offense, and how often do you see a new offense come in and they rock the league with players that are used to a certain play style? So my only expectation is we win the division, but other than that, I'm not going to sit here and say Super Bowl or bust. It's not going to be like that. But I will say, if we don't make the playoffs, DA's got to go. But other than that, no, I like the moves that we did make coaching-wise and player-wise, especially on the secondary, bringing back Abram, who had a really good last 2 to 3 games filling in when Marcus May was out. But like I said, other than that, no, I'm excited for the season, and all right, we'll see how it goes.
Outstanding. David, I want to address 2 things real quick. I want to address this comment, and then I want to address his next comment. So the first comment, I get he's got a losing record without Brady, right? But I just, again, it's interesting to me, the timing of Brady departing to go to Tampa Bay, right? And no one had Tampa Bay on the radar besides me, by the way. I just want to let you know that I kind of probably was the first person to call it. Man, I didn't say he's going to come to Tampa Bay, obviously, but Tampa Bay would be a pretty interesting fit for Brady, because remember, at that time, San Francisco was the lock. They were going to get this dude because he wanted to go home and all this other bullshit. All that being said, yeah, when he left New England, first and foremost, he left New England because they were strapped. that there was going to be zero talent. There was no, they were in cap hell. They had zero bodies on the team. The fact that they were able to stay within the top 7 of defense for the next 3 years without Brady was pretty spectacular based on their salary cap anyway. Now, obviously, the Belichick is not an offensive-minded coach, and he didn't run the offense. But picking the people he did to run the offense with the skill set, again, when we look at who the talent was on their offense, who? I mean, besides, they got in Mac Jones, they brought in Zappy, but who are the players out there, right? I mean, who were the skilled players? And it wasn't it. Every time they had the 3-headed beast, 2 of the 3 heads got hurt and early, and it was rough. So I get, but I think that the record is not very indicative. I think that Brady saw the writing on the wall. I don't think there was a rift between him. I'll never believe there was a rift between him and Belichick. I'm sure there was issues because Belichick treated Brady like Brady from rookie year to the time he left, because he did it to everybody. But I don't think there was a rift. I think Brady was like, listen, I got to get the F out of here because there's nothing on this team, and you can't bring nothing to this team. Anyhow, all that being said, it's interesting to me because when they had Matt Castle, when Brady went out, what was their record that year? 11-5, right? Or 10-6, 11-5, but they lost out to the Dolphins, I believe. The year that Brady had to get suspended for Deflategate, they went 3-1. And the one loss was to Buffalo, by the way, and that was with Brissett throwing because Garoppolo said he hurt himself. But at the end of the day, with Brissett and Garoppolo, they were 3-0 going into Buffalo for the 4th game, 3-1, and then Brady came back. So throughout those years where these people, maybe pre-Brady and post-Brady, I get it. But during the years that Brady was there with the teams that they were there, backups that came in won games too. And they won impressively. So, and we're talking about Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo, who otherwise are just absolutely below average quarterbacks in the NFL, period. So I just say that. And then the other part is Andy Reid, best coach of all time. I think Belichick's better, but I will tell you this: I don't think Andy Reid's not in the conversation. I think Andy Reid's phenomenal. I think he's shown it, but he's an offensive genius. I mean, when it comes to fully coaching the offense, the dude, you could tell with McNabb, it was automatic, and it didn't matter about McNabb's ability to maneuver. First reads were there because he created offensive plans. When you look at Mahomes, I know Mahomes is absolutely phenomenal, but he was able to create first reads that are plays that are designed to beat the defense on the first read, and they do it. So now, great coach. I love Andy Reid. Anyway, I'm done, Davey.
No, that's fine.
Oh, look at that. Look at that, KD. You got a big thank you.
Hey, man. Hey, good job. Keep smoking the competition, brother.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God you ended that sentence that way. I thought I was going in another direction.
Hey.
Jeez.
Hey, so look, for me, wow, you guys are gutter-minded, but okay. So, Paul, I wanted to ask you a question before everybody else got their shots in. I was going to ask you more about the developmental side. I noticed you got 4 young guys. You answered a question about one of them, which is Alontae Taylor. He's developing properly like you guys want him. I had him coming in and doing exactly what he's doing because he was a stud at Tennessee. So the one guy that I'm going to ask about is DeMarco Jackson from App State. Can he transition to one of the off linebacker positions? Because again, you got Demarius Davis, but if Demarius Davis goes or Demario Davis goes down, you lose your depth in middle linebacker. But I think Jackson is an engine to where you kind of want to put him on the field. That's the one player. The other 2 is going to be Brian Breesy from, I believe, Clemson, the defensive tackle. And then the last guy is going to be Reg Jones Wright from Oregon State, 6'4" corner. Again, if you're looking for a corner, I think you can develop that guy. He's light in the britches, but if he gets his weight up, I think he can probably give you something in the secondary as well. And I'm just interested to hear your take on about those players.
So I thought Jackson was a cap casualty this year. I don't remember if they kept him. I'll have to look at that. But Breezy, he was the best interior defensive lineman I think we had last year. For a rookie, I think he outperformed all expectations. And it was a shame that we couldn't pair him with another defensive tackle to complement his skill sets. So I really do like that one. And as far as the linebacker position, bringing in Willie Gay may affect that as well. So I could see him falling further down the depth chart if we did keep him. I have to research that. That's because I remember we did draft him. And then the corner, I'm not even sure because I don't really even think he touched the field much last year because of the corners. What's his name? Who we lost in free agency this year because he stepped up and did really good. But as far as Alontae Taylor, I'll touch on him. I want him to move back outside because I feel like that's where he plays better. But who knows what DA's plan for him is going forward. I'll say that. But one that you didn't mention is the rookie running back we had last year who was hurt. But the last game of the year, he showed his potential. So I'm really curious to see how he does. And I think with Kubiak, I think he may give Kamara a run for money when it comes to play snaps this year, to be honest.
Well, and Paul, in all fairness, and Kamara is great, and he's always been great. But Kamara's best years are when he has that Melvin Ingram. Is it Mark Ingram, not Melvin? Melvin's a linebacker. I know, but Ingram, I got it. I caught myself, KD. You know, Kamara plays better when he's got a Mark Ingram type running back, where he's not expected to play, 250 to 300 snaps at the position. I mean, and then they can specialize and offset. And, Kamara plays his best on the going out of the backfield and catching the screen pass and making things happen in space. So, I mean, that's good on the Saints that they have that. I forget what is his name. I forget the running back.
He's from TCU. I can't remember.
Kendre Miller.
Yeah, Kendre Miller. But the Ingram factor was supposed to be Williams last year, but Williams ended up getting the hamstring injury and missed another season as well. So it all fell back on Kamara because they were both hurt. So, yeah. But no, I think Kendre Miller and Alontae Taylor are probably – because I'm not worried about Brian Breezy. I think he's going to be a bona fide defensive tackle for the Saints for the future. But Alontae Taylor, hopefully they move him back outside. Or I would even like to see him maybe if he can fill the nickel. But he said he openly came out and said he doesn't want to do that. So we'll see. But I like that question. That was a good question. Now I have more research to do.
Okay, I got one last one then before we move on. And this is just, Paul, this is all for you real quick. What did you think when the Saints last game, where the victory formation and the guy ran it in? Did you think that was bullshit like the rest of America, or were you like, hey, it's my team?
I loved it, and I hated Dennis Allen's response after the game. It wasn't. They were already losing. They weren't going to come back. It's not like okay, what's the difference between 7 points? You already lost the game. I don't think whatever. They were trying to get the man his touchdown. How do you can't go from leading the league in touchdowns to 0 the next year? That's dirty in my opinion. So I don't think it was bullshit at all. I think bullshit. That's what I think. I think they should have fired him for his response.
Okay. Well, there you have it. I think that's it. And I'm not mad at you, Paul, for your response. I'm exactly opposite of your response. I don't agree with you, but I just don't agree with you. But I think that that's okay. I think what's interesting though is it goes back to kind of when your team does something and you're like, it is what it is. I hear it every Sunday when Eric watches football. So I know it is. Whenever his team holds, there's no holding. I'll tell you right now, Pittsburgh is the most disciplined non-penalty team ever. And every other team that's watching, especially if he wants them to lose, look at that hold. But if their team does it, it's like, oh, man, it was just the guy's jersey got caught around his hand. I mean, the guy shouldn't have put his jersey on. Whatever. I mean, it's not that extreme.
To be
but
fair,
I do like
I will show examples of TJ Watt being held by 3 players, and then Jeff will be like, oh, but he fell on Josh Allen. Or et cetera, et cetera.
That's not true at all. And you know that, Eric. I don't ever say. The only time I come back with any kind of penalties with you is just a dick with you because you've told me about 15 that have happened that I've watched, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I get it. I get it. I mean, look, I'm not on the call, but at the end of the day, Buffalo beat the shit out of Pittsburgh in the playoffs. Okay, let's move on to why we're here.
All right.
Wait, Paul, go ahead. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
Moving on
be
to
mad
the
if that happened. I wouldn't have been mad if that happened to the Saints because it's sports. People get paid to score touchdowns, hit home runs. You don't get paid to get 1 yard. All right, that's all I'm going to say. If we were already losing by 20 points, go ahead.
You've never been on the receiving end of the Dan Marino fake spike bullshit.
I don't care about the fake spike because that's in the 2-minute warning and they're trying to win a game. My only disagreement with Paul is this: if the guy led the league in touchdowns the year before and they had to do a fake kneel down to get him a touchdown, either he fell way off. If you're going to give him the touchdown, make him earn it. That's all I'm saying. If the guy, I understand.
I didn't even care about that. That part don't listen. I get it. All these guys got different incentives. I didn't care about that. My only issue is just like it happened in the past. I mean, hell, I remember Cleveland when what game was it where Brissett faked the spike, but then threw it? Was it a Brissett that did it? Yeah, it was Brissett that did it because he messed up. But he pump faked the pass and then spiked it, which you can't do. It's a fumble. That is a fumble. It's not an incomplete pass. The way he did it. But anyway, that's dumb. But what I didn't like is that when you're going to kneel and the defense lines up that you're going to kneel and you run a play, I don't really care if they score or don't score. The only problem is that play, if you don't play it, creates the opportunity for all kind of injuries because the defense is giving you, okay, we're gonna call it a day. Let's get off the field. So it's just not a prepared play.
Well,
I don't like
my only issue now going forward. My only issue now is I worry about the offensive linemen and the quarterbacks in New Orleans because anytime they line up to end the game, you're going to see defensive linemen take liberties because I don't know if you're going to end the game. Last year, you ran it in. So
Jameis Winston left to Cleveland. So whenever Jameis Winston comes in, that might happen to him because he's the moron. He's like, hey, let's do this, guys.
Can't wait.
But okay, now we're going to move on because we do want to get to this. And I know Jeffrey's got to jump off here at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. So I'm going to get to this. We're going to bring up some slides because we are going to go over some of the new NFL rules. So I'm going to add this to the stage. The NFL rule changes for the 2024 season. The first change that we got up is the third challenge. It was proposed by the Detroit Lions, and this rule will allow for a third challenge following one successful challenge. Before this change, both challenges had to be successful to warrant a third. Around the table, I'll start with you, Sean. What do you think? Yay or nay?
Oh, absolutely. I am all for this. You get 1 out of 2 right. You get the third one. I am 100% for it. It still can't happen in the last 2 minutes, correct?
What's that?
Right.
It cannot happen in the last 2 minutes, so it's not like you can do it to get a timeout. If you're at a timeout, you don't get to call it. But I'm 100% for this because things happen so quickly. And trying to, get the word from the booth who's watching the replay and everything. 3, I think, is a good number as long as you get 1 right. If you call 2 and you lose them both, tough luck, you're out. But otherwise, I love this rule.
Okay, all that means for Buffalo is Sean McDermott will have a lot more red hankies to put on his wall. And he'll never get one right. So KD
he'll never get another challenge. He's gonna have the same amount of challenges as he always had because he never gets one.
Yeah, he never uses them. So KD, your thoughts? What do you think?
I love it because now it triggers a response of trying to be right instead of just to challenge. Because at times we all witnessed all of our head coaches or whoever challenging stuff that we were like, "What are you doing?" Well, at least this time now they got to do their due diligence instead of, hey, okay, look, I'm trying to challenge this so I can strategize. At least they can do their due diligence beforehand. So now they can get rewarded for doing so instead of prolonging the game.
Excellent. Eric.
I'm not surprised that Katie likes this challenge because John Harbaugh is the biggest rules lawyer I think I've ever watched. Every time he plays, I think even every time he loses, he has some sort of problem with litigation from the game of how it was officiated. So I just thought I'd drop that in there, Katie. So I don't care for the third challenge.
I mean, your coach just openly disrespect the rule, like running on the field in the motherfucking kickoff.
I don't disagree, and he got properly punished for that, I believe, and so we can move on from that, and we can move on to the next discussion. I don't hate it. I think the officials suck, so if we get an extra opportunity to prove they suck, I think that'll give us a great opportunity to show how bad the NFL officiating is, and we can get more stuff correct.
Sure, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Look, I don't care about the get one, new move one. I think you should get 3 challenges to call it a day. I understand there's strategy involved. I don't necessarily believe coaches challenge things because they don't know. They're told. I mean, I think the people in the replay booth that call down and tell them, hey, challenge it, they're dumb because sometimes, I mean, there's communication, right, in that regard, and those people suck for the most part. But it's fine. To me, it's an irrelevant rule change. To me personally, it's good that they only got to do it. But I just think you get 3 challenges, call it a day, strategize properly. If you don't get the challenge, it's a timeout anyway, right? So it is what it is. Personally,
I'll ask Paul's opinion after I give mine. I don't mind the third challenge. What I dislike about all of it, about the challenge rule in general, is, and maybe it's me, but the NFL has become so vague. And with the guy upstairs now calling down to referees and changing calls on the field anyway, why do they even give teams challenges? Because if they have a referee in the booth who calls down to the guys, or people in New York call the headset on the referee and they stop the game, no team took a challenge, but then the ref can go and change the rules or change the play anyway, without a challenge being called from either team. So I think they should have added that the plays, except within the 2 minutes, can't be reviewable in New York, because if every play can be reviewed in New York and the referee can change the call on the field based on what New York says, the challenge rule to me is dumb. I mean, it really is. So I like it because now coaches, at least if they get 1 out of 2 right, they get a third one. But again, until New York either decides they want to stick their nose all the way in or take their nose completely out of it, challenge doesn't really mean nothing. Paul, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I have no issues with it. I don't see the difference between having to get 1 right and having to get 2 right. Because from my experience, a lot of times the refs still don't know what they're looking at, even though it's obvious. Or coaches challenge stuff that be challenged, or when it should be challenged, they don't. So a third challenge, I mean, depending on how good of a coach you have, it could be helpful or it could just be useful.
Sure. Excellent. All right.
It doesn't matter.
Second rule. Right. So now the new reviewable plays, like there wasn't any before. The league has expanded where they can use replay. That now includes ruling that a quarterback was down or out of bounds, or whether or not the play clock expired before the snap can also be reviewed. Jeffrey, I'll ask you, because the
who proposed the change? I mean, was it the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, from when, I mean, I just like the fact that during the whole conversation we had on the chat the other day, I was like, hey, KD, because I didn't see the rule. I wasn't watching the owners' meetings, and I got like updates when the hip drop tackle and all that stuff, and obviously Eric went off on a tangent there. But I was like, did they change the rule about the clock? Because Detroit won that game. But they did. They're able to review it and to say, hey, there was 75 seconds here, so keep Tucker on the sideline. But it's just interesting. I mean, it's all fine. Like, I don't understand. Explain this to me. I mean, don't take too much time to do so, Dave, because that last explanation you had was very long. But the rule now includes ruling that a quarterback was down or out of bounds. I thought that you could review that if he was down or out of bounds before that. Like I didn't think that was I thought that was a reviewable play to begin with.
I think what they're meaning is that that's not necessarily a challenge rule. I believe that it's a New York reviewable rule.
Oh, is that what these things are? Is New York can review them up?
The reviewable plays is that New York can now call down and say, yo, the play clock expired, guys. If it hits 0, and that's what I think. I don't, but again, I also think that now it can be challenged also, but I believe the quarterback being down or out of bounds was always reviewable.
I don't understand. I mean, so I read KD shot this out. I read it. It was good. I like, look, the more it's reviewable is fine with me. And I don't like the fact that New York can make calls and all that stuff. I don't like that part. I mean, it's cool and all. They make the game better, I guess. But it just gets frustrating because it doesn't make the game better. And it just gets a little bit more involved and engaged and time consuming. And because, look, let's be honest, Dave. If I watch a review that takes me longer than a minute, and I say a minute, if you can't review it in a minute, then the play stands and we move forward. I think that needs to be set up because I can't stand the fact that they go to commercial break, they come back, they're still reviewing it, then they go to commercial break, and you're like, listen, man, look at the play or don't. Either way, whatever you call it, let's go, because we put a pitch clock in baseball because they thought it was too long. Move on from that stuff. But anyway, that's all I have.
Katie, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so what they're doing, they got a system. It's not new. It's been since the 2021-22 season. It's going to be in the slide after this. It's the Hawkeye system that they have, and essentially you basically become your own little New York, if you will. So it's basically going to be 4 synchronized cameras that's going to continuously roll, and if there's something comes into question, I could sync up all 4 cameras and send it to a tablet without having to call to New York. So that's the plan. Now, I don't know how available these things are going to be, but that's the plan, to try and get that into every stadium so they can eliminate the whole call to New York type of deal.
Cool. Yeah. Does anybody? I'll just ask this instead of going through the thing and that. Does anybody have anything to add about the new reviewable plays?
I have one thing to add. I have a huge history of Jeff complaining about the play clock expiring. So now that, I'll tie this together. Now that there are new reviewable plays, if Jeff was coaching, he would use his 3 challenge on the play clock expiring during a play. Am I right, Jeff?
No, I would never do that. Well, I could, right? I mean, I could if it was important. Like, for instance, at that time, listen, Eric, my frustration about the play clock is that it's not even a rule we should consider. What I mean is, in the NBA, there's a shot clock, dude. Like, if you have the ball in your hand and the thing goes beep, you didn't shoot. And the same thing, like, we take away, like, you can't tell me that in technology laden times that we can't figure out something that when that shit touches 0, it isn't based on me looking at the ball, looking up and looking back. And if the ball, that's the dumbest shit I ever heard. You, Mr. Human Being, stare at the ball. When you hear beep, if the ball's still there, jackass, it's a penalty. I mean, it's simple to me. It's baffling to me because we take the most simplistic rule that is easy and we can't figure that shit out. And then we look at the complicated rules and act as though we're going to solve world hunger and shit. We're not. And all these rule changes are dumb only because they haven't simplified the most easy rule ever. And I'm sorry. You see, you made me go on a tangent, but I would use all 3 of my challenges on the Tucker before Tucker kicked a 70-yard field goal because that shit was like 7 seconds below 0.
All right. Anybody else on this rule? We good? Can we move on?
Let's move on because we got a lot more to cover.
I know we're going to have discussion on this one. The banishment of the hip drop tackle. So the NFL has eliminated what they called the hip drop tackle, a potentially dangerous tackling technique, which is most notably called the hip drop tackle. Specifically, a player can no longer grab a runner with both hands or wrap the runner with both arms and unweight himself by swiveling and dropping his hips or lower body, landing and trapping the runner's legs at or below the knee. If caught performing this type of tackle, it'll be a 15-yard penalty, which means tackling is no longer allowed in the NFL. And this is where I'm going to say this, and I'm going to let you all talk on it. This is all I have to say. If they're going to call this, if they're going to have this kind of penalty in the game, if I'm the NFL Players Association and they were already upset about this, in my next contract negotiations, I would not do anything, and I would go on strike if they did not hire full-time NFL officials, because it would take a year and an off season to make sure every crew, everybody calls this play exactly correct, because there's going to be 16 games a week, and there's going to be 16 interpretations from each crew as to what a hip drop tackle is. So the NFL needs to hire full-time officials.
Hey, Dave, I'm gonna jump off. So let me just say this, right? I actually watched the video today, which is pretty interesting, right? So I don't disagree with Eric's frustration on this. I do not believe there'll ever be a strike. I mean, in this regard, they get paid too much money. They're not going on strike for this. But let me just say this. They actually showed in this video where they're briefing this to the owners, right? So they showed the video which was briefed, and at every game there was at least one like legitimate. They showed the play in every game of every single week that this type of play happened, this specific tackle. Now let me it's not just a hip drop tackle. There's more to it than it. So it's not just basic, and I get it. But to me, this is a very difficult thing to regulate. And oh, by the way, it's a difficult thing to eliminate, because this is really, and KD and Eric would probably be able to talk to this specifically more than I can, because I didn't teach shit about football, right? But this is how basic tackling skills are taught. And I say that because if you got a guy who isn't 300 pounds or 250 pounds or hell, 195-pound running back, right? And a running back that's running at you, and you're a 160 or 180-pound corner, you're not going to hit them up high. You might try to take out their legs, but if you got them going onto the outside, the only real way to tackle them is to grab them by their waist and then unweight yourself, because that's what's going to take for you not to look like a douchebag and getting just moved on away. Landing on the legs is where the problem lies, right? So that's the hard part to me, is how do you, from behind, tackle a person and not and their legs are moving, so you have to time your drop at the time that their legs are out from underneath you, and it's just tough, man. This is going to be a very difficult thing. But again, in the videos, they showed the one tackle, and they showed the Tannehill injury, they showed the Mark Andrews injury, they showed these injuries, all in which I believe could have been avoided if they didn't do this. But it begs the question, what would they have done differently, or how could they have tackled him otherwise, right? So that becomes the quandary, right? But that's all. I'm gonna listen to you guys. I gotta run. I got some things to do before like the morning, so let me run out. But hey, good to see you on here, Paul. Come back again. It was great to have you. Sean, always good to see you. David, you suck, and Eric, whatever. But Katie, who hurt me? That bullshit play. I picked Detroit that game, and you picked that. That still bothers me because your ass should have lost. Anyway, that's years ago now. I still harbor ill will. Y'all have a great night, man. We'll see you guys later.
All right, Jeff.
All right.
All right, Katie. Katie, I'm gonna let you talk about this first, and then I'll go to Eric.
So here's my big issue with it, right? This is my issue. At some point, you learn this, and I want to know who taught you that. So because I've never seen a coach at any level say, hey, this is what I want you to do when we square up, or either you get the drop on me or whatever it may be, even when you're tackling from behind. I've never seen a coach say, hey, look, this is what we're going to deliberately do. We're going to grab this guy from behind by his waist, and we're going to basically try and drop our weight and just let him drag us down the field. That's essentially what you're doing if you don't land on his feet. So again, for me, it starts back with the teaching of the game. And for people saying, hey, it's impossible to tackle people from behind, there's countless amount of highlights showing you people getting caught from behind. Shoestring tackle, wrap up, spin away, spin towards, whatever it may be. The issue is what happens after you wrap that person up. That's the issue. The hip drop tackle itself, if you just grab somebody and drop your weight and you hit the ground and their legs not pinned underneath you, it's null and void. It's no issue. In fact, they're probably going to break your tackle. But when you drop your weight and you trap a body part underneath you, that's where the issue comes, because that's almost guaranteed a broken ankle every time. And that's the ugly part about the game. I got it. I understand the game is a gladiator sport. People want to see such and such. It's entertainment, so forth and so on. But nobody wants to see anybody get hurt or that their foot turned all the way around backwards to them when they're standing up looking forward. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see those type of injuries. So again, when it comes down to this, it's like, hey, okay, look, maybe we need to revisit something when it comes down to how we're going to tackle. And I got it, the weight disparities or whatever it may be. But you know what? Guess what? Somebody made a conscious decision to take you, knowing darn well you had a 100-pound discrepancy. That's an organizational problem. That's not a, hey, look, I need you to lose weight, but so my guys can tackle you. Hell no. What are you talking about? That's the beauty of the game. Because again, if a lineman catches a pass and a cornerback's trying to tackle the lineman, what do we expect to happen? The cornerback to get rolled. So again, that's part of the game. Get your bigs on bigs, your small guys. Hey, look, don't go in there playing around with those linemen. It's not pretty in there. So for me, again, I like the effort they're trying to put into it. However, people are whining about it and not really understanding, hey, the part that they want out of it is exactly what I talked about when it comes down to the twisting and the landing on body parts and so forth. Because I don't care who you are. I don't care how big and strong you are. Look, you're not made to take 250 pounds on your ankle bending backward already. You're not made to take that and get up and walk away like nothing happened.
I got you. I understand. I agree. Eric, because I know you have issues, big issues with all this stuff. So have at it.
Look, I can't stress this enough. In a perfect world, everything what Katie has said is perfect. We do not live in a perfect world. We do not live where you can take time to critically think about at full speed about how to make that happen. And what I do not like about this rule is that it is leaving more judgment into the hands of the officials. And we've already seen that their judgment is not very good, especially in critical situations. So you're going to have more games that are determined by officiating based on what looks like what. You can't tell me at full speed, and I the same way with hockey. You can't tell me at full speed that you can sit there and you're chasing the guy from behind and then you wrap up, and then ideally that it happens. These injuries happen. I mean, ideally nobody wants to. I don't want to see Mark Andrews get hurt. I don't want to see guys get their ankles busted. But ideally, these are not everyday occurrences like they're made out to be. These are rare situations that they happen. But you're talking about trying to over litigate a game that's physical, that they're getting paid millions of dollars. They have insurance on their contracts. This is part of the risk you take when you put the helmet on and play football. Okay. I've got some lingering arm issues and leg issues from playing football for years ago, from when I got crushed by some offensive linemen, and it sucks. Okay. But I wouldn't have traded any of it for a day, and I don't regret any of it. I mean, it's part of it. You have risk in every part of the job. And I sure wish that some of us that work regular jobs could have as much litigation to make sure that there's no risk in anything we do, because ideally there's risk in every part of your job. And so I don't like the litigation. And if you're going to hire, you better be damn consistent about it, because you start getting some inconsistencies about calls, and you start getting some Patrick Mahomes is getting this bullshit call in a critical moment because he got twisted around and thrown down. I'm going to be real pissed, and I'm going to make sure they know it. Ideally, these are owners that are protecting their investments on offense because they want scoring, just like the NBA. And these defensive players are going to react to it, and there's going to be consequence to it. Trust me.
Well, no, I mean, even Rich McKay came out and said that they're trying to boost offensive scoring because in the pre-COVID or during COVID, it was at 49 points and it dropped down to like 42 points this year. So they want to try to get it to around 45 points a game or 46 points a game. And yeah, I mean, they are legislating defense out of football, pretty much. And that's the sad part. Paul, your thoughts on this?
Not much per se. KD's explanation kind of skewed my views a little bit, can't lie. But that just leads me to think there may be more knee injuries from people aiming towards knees now. So other than that, I want to kind of see the statistics on what caused more injuries, turf or people doing a hip drop tackle. And then maybe next year they say everyone needs to have natural grass instead of turf. So props to KD for changing my views. So I really have nothing to say because I was going to be more on the lines of Eric saying it's bullshit. But KD was kind of persuasive. So I'll give him that.
Gotcha. Sean.
All right. All right. Eric used his word of the day litigation for the 78th time in chat and the 4th time on this show. So I've graduated to captain and Nicola. So here we go. It's now going to be Eric says litigation, or we start to talk about Josh Allen. We're going straight to these. Everyone, you know the drinking game. Okay. So the hip drop tackle. I'm going to start off with, it is going to be very tough to call during a game. Where they are going to get players is going to be after reviewing the game, and defensive players will be fined for making a hip drop tackle. There's so many things. Oh, I love it, KD. Every time he says litigation from now on, we all have to unmute and yell. Okay, so that's where they're going to get the defensive players, and that's where the issues are going to begin, because it's not going to get called during a game. Real time, it's going to be very tough to figure out, but they're going to watch it, and they're going to say, hey, here's the deal. You're going to get fined $15,000. That's going to be the problem. It's a lot like these helmet-to-helmet plays where they're fining players after the game. So, with that being said, the Mark Andrews play was not a hip drop tackle. That's what the competition committee said. It is not. That was so he got injured on that. It wasn't a hip drop tackle. If you want to see a real hip drop tackle that caused, watch when the Giants were playing the Cowboys at Cowboys a couple of years ago, and Dak Prescott, they had that hip drop tackle, and he broke his tibia or whatever the hell that calf thing is in 2 places. That was a hip drop tackle. Now, I hate to do this because I'm going to go full Al Bundy on y'all. I'm playing high school football. I was 6'2". I was 130 pounds if it was raining outside. Chris Balducci, running back for Pleasantville, was 250 pounds. And he broke through. The only thing I could do to bring this man down was to grab his waist and try to sit my butt on the ground to get him down. That was the only way. So I'm not saying that it's justified and you should do it, but you're asking these defensive backs 160, 170, 180 if they're lucky to try to tackle these 250-pound running backs. Now, they got to do what they got to do. They got to get them down. And now all of a sudden, they're going to go down. It's a penalty, 15 more yards. It's so tough to call. How are you going to possibly be able to do this during a game and say, well, he unweighted himself? And like, what the hell's unweighted anyway? Is that even a freaking word? It's so subjective. And what it's going to come down to is on Wednesday, you're going to see the Pittsburgh Steelers, their defensive back is going to get a $15,000 fine because he hip drop tackled somebody. It's not going to affect the game. One rule I think we should get rid of is if an offensive player has the ball, he should not be allowed to put his hand on somebody's face mask and push them away. A face mask, if a defensive guy touches a face mask, 15 yards. It should be the same both ways. A touch to the face is as dangerous on both sides of the ball.
No, you're incorrect. That's factually incorrect.
Okay.
A defensive player, the only time a defensive player gets called for putting his hands on a face mask is either in the line in a blocking, like if it's illegal hands to the face, if he's coming up on the offensive lineman, or if the defender smacks the quarterback in the face. The only time
I call it on that because if a running back's coming out and he just touches the face mask,
the only time a face mask is called with the defender is if he grasps the face mask. He has to put his hand into the face mask. If he puts his hand, like if there's a running back and he goes like that with his hand flat, it's not a face mask.
I'll defer to Eric on this one, and we can discuss this for another 75 minutes. But anyway, my points are my points, and this is not going to come down to gameplay. It's going to be very seldomly called unless a ref has got his hand on the game and he could sway it. He could say, oh, hip drop tackle. It's going to be very rarely called, but it's going to be very oftenly fined.
Now, we could settle this in litigation, Sean.
Litigation! Yeah.
So, again, the one thing that I will say again, if they're going to enforce that call, full-time officials need to be hired to work year-round to make sure every officiating crew is calling it the same way, because that's going to be the real issue, is 16 crews calling that call 16 different ways. And that's where your problems are going to happen. And that's where it's going to start to affect not only the game, but the competitive balance of the football games.
I don't think anyone could disagree with that statement.
Do we remember last year, boys? We were talking and we were watching some of these fines come down. Do you remember Jalen Warren got an $80,000? He got a whole game check fine for making a block, and it was a normal block. So now you're allowing a non-football mind to go and look on Wednesday and find another thing to fine you for. I think there's way too much. I think the players' union is going to react, and I think you're going to start to see, ideally, them put some pressure on the league, and they should, because these league corporate guys, they don't know anything football. They're businessmen, and I think obviously the business side of the players' union is going to react to this and put some pressure back on these Roger Goodells. Because ideally, like it's been mentioned many times, this is about scoring and this is about punishing the defender. And it's all these rules are typically on the onus of the defender. And we're making it so hard to play defense. And ideally, if people didn't want to see hitting and they didn't want to see a great defense, the ratings wouldn't be good. The Steelers-Ravens games wouldn't have good ratings like they had over the years. And so I know the point. I get the player safety. I understand. I think we can all agree, and for the first time, all five of us and Jeff off in space can all agree that they need full-time officials, and it has to be consistent, or it will be hell next year.
Absolutely. I agree. So now we'll go to this rule, because I love this rule. The new kickoff rules. The most dynamic change comes via the new kickoff rules. Now the kicker will line up at his own 35-yard line while the rest of the coverage team lines up along the receiving team's 40. Conversely, the receiving team can have two returners inside the landing zone from the 20-yard line to the goal line while the rest of the receivers line up at the 35-yard line. I think there's more to this. No, that's it's the same ones. Oh, okay. Never mind. So that's fine. I'll leave that there. So,
oh my God, Dell computers.
There's some things that were left out here. So, if if the ball goes into the end zone on the kickoff, they get the ball at the 30-yard line. The kicking team or the receiving team gets the ball at the 30-yard line. If the ball goes out of bounds, the receiving team gets the ball at their 40-yard line. And they didn't pass the what you call it, onside kick, correct? They don't have to call for a surprise onside kick. The onside kick is still the same. If I'm not mistaken.
You are mistaken. They cannot do an onside kick until the fourth quarter, and you have to declare that you're going to do an onside kick, which is weird because then everyone kind of backs up to where they normally would, but you're allowed to overload the line.
So now you can overload to a standard onside kick like you used to?
A 6-4. You can't do any more than 6 on one side, 4 on the other to give you and if you I think you could fair catch it in the target zone, which is from the goal line to the 20, but then you would get the ball at the 20, not the 25.
No, so, I don't think you can fair catch it anymore. You can't fair catch it. I don't know
how it ends up, but if you...
It might be if it goes into the end zone, or it might not if it goes.
That's what. If it lands in the landing area, goes to the end zone, and you down it, you get it at the 20. If it goes to the end zone on a fly, then you get it at the 30.
Yeah, but there's no more fair catching inside the receiving zone, so that's been eliminated. So I love this rule. I'm so glad that they are bringing the kickoff return back to football. To me, if they weren't going to change this rule, you might as well give the team the ball at the 25-yard line and just start the game, because in the playoffs, I think every kickoff went into the end zone. I don't think there was a kickoff return in the playoffs. I think that was the stat, or maybe one out of all the kickoffs that occurred in the playoffs went through the end zone or into the end zone. So I love it. I am happy about this rule. KD, tell me, what do you think? You like this rule?
Don't care about it at all. The only thing is when you're going to train the guys to do this, because again, it's going to take some coordination to do this. This ain't something that you can just splice it together and say, "Hey, all right, go ahead and execute this."
All right, Eric, anything to add about this?
Nope, I'm with KD. Ideally, I do like the bringing the kickoff back, but I still think kickers are going to probably try to boot this thing out of the end zone.
Okay, Sean?
I do not think that the kickers are going to boot it out of the end zone. They're going to put it in the target zone. I love this rule, and they can implement it fairly easily because we've seen it done before. It's not just something that they pulled out of their rears and said, okay, try this. We've seen it done in the XFL. And the only thing I don't like about the rule is, because me being the alcoholic I am, is when someone scores a touchdown, I know I have at least 6 minutes to go to the bathroom and come back and watch the game. But now that's going to be cut down to 4 because it's not the kickoff that goes to the end zone, then they got to play another commercial, then the offense starts. So it delays my bathroom activities, but I can handle it.
Paul?
No, I like it, but I was just reading again. So anything that's in the landing zone, it's caught, you have to return it. And also it's not.
Hold on, you froze. Hold your thought. He froze up. So when he comes back, I'll let him finish his thought. So you froze up, so go ahead. What were you saying?
So I noticed you said if the ball goes out of bounds, it's anything that falls short of the landing zone will be placed at the 40-yard line.
Okay. And then everything else was right? And if it goes out of bounds, is it at the 40 as well?
I don't see that, but I'm only assuming.
It might be the 30. If it goes into the end zone, it's a 30.
I've seen that if it lands short, it was at the 45.
40. And if the kick lands in the landing zone, goes into the end zone, it has to be returned or downed by the receiving team. If it's down, it's a touchback, and it will go to the 20-yard line.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and that is one big difference, because it used to be when you were the receiving team, you had to touch the ball and down it in the end zone. And in the last couple of years, they would just let the ball go and it'd be bouncing around, and it didn't matter. But now it means you have to take possession of that ball.
Right. Exactly. So now I mentioned this in the chat. So I'm going to ask you guys, because there are coaches who love special teams. There are coaches who seasons can hinge on having great special teams. So my question, and Eric, I gave you crap about Cordero Patterson, but once that rule passed and Pittsburgh signed Cordero Patterson, that might be a steal of a pick based on the new kickoff rules. Okay? Honestly, that might be a steal of a pickup. So I need to ask you, whose draft stock has risen because of these new kickoff rules? Because I look at it and I think a guy like Xavier Legette, Xavier Worthy, those fast guys who hit a hole, because those defensive players or the kickoff guys coming down on that line, they only have a 10-yard head start to get speed, and you're going to have a lineup, your 10 versus my 10, and if he finds a lane, you get these fast guys who can take off through a lane, and it's over because there's nobody behind them. Before, they would come in waves. Now you're all lined up 10 at a time. If you get through that first line, it's touchdown. So there's got to be guys that you think draft stock went up just based on this new rule alone. Based on the
McAfee. Pat McAfee's stock just went up.
Pat McAfee. Katie or Eric, you got any thoughts?
No, I think there will be an emphasis on field position, and I think that punters and some of these guys are making more money than they ever have. And I do agree with your thought of Xavier Legette, though I don't think it rockets him into the first round. It probably puts him in the second, moves him up from the third round. But, Xavier Worthy's another one that could possibly do it with speed. And I think teams will use that. But I still think we're missing the ability. If a team looks at a Cordell Patterson or, maybe Xavier Legette's really good at it, or a Devin Hester back in the day, they're still going to kick away from him. Yes, teams will try to take advantage of that if they think that your returner sucks and they can pin you and they think their special teams is better. But after you get burnt once, still going to kick it outside the end zone and take their odds.
KD?
Yeah, nobody's stock is rising. It's mathematically, first off, you're at a disadvantage. If they have 2 returners, that means you have 9 going against 10.
Well, they can put 2 returners. They don't have to.
Okay, if you don't, what am I going to do then? You have 1 back there.
Oh, I got you. I hear you're going to kick away. I get it. Sean, you got any thoughts on?
I love the kickoff rule, and I'm glad they adopted it. I said last year that they should have, because it's such a lame play of football. But before we all go crazy and talk about how bad it is, I want to remind you all that all these rule changes have to get past the competition committee. And I'm going to list the people on the competition committee. So you got Rich McKay, the chairman and CEO of the Atlanta Falcons. Katie Blackburn, the executive vice president of the Cincinnati Bengals. Chris Greer, general manager, Miami Dolphins. Stephen Jones, the COO, executive vice president of director and play personnel for the Dallas Cowboys. John Mara, President, CEO, owner of the New York Giants. Sean McDermott, head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Sean McVay, head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. And last but not least, Mike Tomlin from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, you are mistaken in the fact that those rules are adopted because they already got past the competition committee because those
Yes, that's the
rules,
competition committee who approved them.
right. No, the owners approved them at the owners meeting. Those rules take effect this year. Those are the new rules. They've already passed all the committees. The rules that were passed were the rules that got out of the committee that were voted on by the owners and were approved by the owners.
By these people.
Yeah, those people.
Okay. So
they're rules. They've
correct.
already.
But what I'm saying, there's surprising names on this list.
Oh yeah, no.
Like,
oh,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to bust your balls, Eric, but your Tomlin approved this.
Yeah, and so I'll tell you why. Is because, I'll give you a Tomlin influence here. Is because Le'Veon Bell got tackled like that in 2015 by Vontaze Burfict, and Rooney came out in support of it, and Rooney signs Tomlin's paycheck. So Tomlin's going to do exactly what Rooney told him
to do.
So it's not about morality; it's about money.
Yeah.
Everything's about money.
Yeah, it's about money. It's plain and simple. It's what the NFL is doing. It's all about making money. It's not about making us happy on a Sunday afternoon and making sure everything's candy canes and unicorns. It's about money. Because what makes money? You know what makes the NFL money? Controversy. Because everybody who says, I'm not going to watch this game because of all this crap and blah, 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 the controversy forces more people to tune in just to see if there's more controversy.
And to come on, more viewers
Paul,
to come
who was that? Paul, can that little one probably interject more intelligence into this conversation than the rest of us?
Yeah, that was my little one. Nah. She could, but she's more worried about watching Bluey before bed.
But I do want to say before we go, because we are going to be wrapping up, we got 2 weeks. We are going to be doing our mock draft show. Also on the 25th, we are doing our live show. It is going to start at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to do an hour of pre-show before the draft actually starts, so we can actually talk about the teams and not just be on the 15 minutes when they pick and all this stuff. So we can kind of preview our thoughts for each team before the draft actually starts, kind of give us our final tune-up and what we really think teams are going to do and where they're going to go. Again, we could see trades happen before the draft even starts or during the draft. So there's going to be a lot of excitement, a lot of buildup. I will say this before the show, Jadeveon Clowney signed with the Carolina Panthers. That's one thing I did want to touch on. I think Carolina's made some sneaky good additions this offseason. They got rid of Brian Burns in that trade with the Giants, but brought Jadeveon Clowney in to replace him. Again, not as good as Burns, obviously, but it's a body to replace him. And then they got the draft capital from the Giants for that pick. So again, we still got 2 weeks, actually a month before the draft, and there's still free agency going, signings coming in little bits at a time. Cordero Patterson signed. Tre'Davious White signed with the Rams, another under the radar. If Tre'Davious White can come back from his injury, I think that could help the Rams secondary. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But, there's still signings coming along left and right. Little signings, things that people don't take for as anything special now, could have huge impacts during the regular season. So never take a signing lightly. Never ask on a chat, who's that guy? Sorry, Eric. But no, like I said, the off season's still here, and there's a lot of players that need rosters or need to be on rosters, and a lot of teams that have to get to 90. And June 1st hasn't even arrived yet, and there's going to be a lot more signings after that because some teams get more cap space after June 1st based on their cuts. So what cap space you don't have today, June 1st you have more money. So things are going to get interesting. Katie, any last words before we take off out of here?
Yeah, I'm just interested in where's the other slide.
You what?
I'm interested in where is the other slide. Where did it go?
Did you have? I downloaded them both. That were the same ones?
No, they were not.
Hold on. Let me see. Let me look.
Okay, not that I want to destroy anything here, but this is why you do not buy a Dell computer. Dave is working on a Dell.
Do we want to see all your downloads? So make sure that you don't share all that.
Oh my God, his browser history.
You can't see them. They're not on there, are they? Oh, man.
Paul, usually you're off by now, and now I know why. Because this has just gotten nuts.
Did you see all my things come up on the screen?
Unfortunately, we probably will.
No, you won't.
And thank God we didn't, because we'd have different conversations with the FCC about what's.
Yeah, I'm the one who get it canceled, David. You can do it one picture.
I have absolutely nothing. The only email I got from you is third challenge. That's the only PDF I got from you.
Yeah, if you open it up, how many slides are in there? You said yourself it was 2. You said it's the same slide.
I'll
you just downloaded the same slide twice.
Hey, Katie, listen, with my dad, I have the same problem every time I send something. So I have to send all the time. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Well, it all came in on one download, and those are the only 2 slides. The third down challenge is the only one that came up.
Holy shucks.
I know. Yeah, that should all be one file.
Yeah, okay, where's the second part to this? Where's the white referee?
Oh, you stupid ass. Dumbass, I forgot there's a button. Okay. Look at that. We got 10 minutes left, guys. Sorry. Sean, I believe this calls for litigation.
I'm out. I got to go refill.
See, look at that. So real quick, while Sean's refilling, the unlimited designated player return or designated return players proposed by Detroit. The NFL has approved a change to playoff rosters where teams now have an unlimited number of designated to return transactions in the postseason. So, KD, talk to me about this. Does this mean, like, if they're on the IR and they come off IR, they can be returned to the playoffs? Anybody who was on IR previous to the end of the season?
Yes. So basically saying, hey, look, like for instance, there was a limit. I think it was 4 that you can basically designate to return, and then you basically had to declare them not being able to return. So now this particular allows them to basically get back at full strength or close to as you can. Particularly for us, a player of interest in this would have helped us out was Tyus Bowser. A year ago, not this last injury, but a year ago, he was able to return. And we used one of our spots for him. And then he turned around and got injured again. And then we couldn't call up anybody else. So it's just like, all right, okay, we did that. But now we don't get anybody else back because we already had used our spot.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's nice. I like that rule. Eric, you like that?
I don't dislike any of these rules.
Yeah, the trade deadline moved. I think it should have went to the following week, though. I think it should have went to week 11, not week 9 or week 10. I think it should have been after week 10. I think you would have seen a lot more player movement after week 10. I think you could have given players on expiring contracts more opportunity because at week 9, I think there's teams that are still borderline in and out. I think after week 10, you get to that point where you're either in or out. And I think you would have seen playoff teams make pushes, especially for guys on expiring contracts, to come in and get them over that hump, maybe. And I think you would have seen a little more movement. Sean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, they keep extending the season. So as you extend the season, you keep adding more games. You got to keep pushing that deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the way the world should work. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me that they keep adding games and extending the season, but they're not pushing out the deadlines further. I mean, am I an idiot for thinking that? I mean, you're going to probably say yes because you're a jerk, but
Paul, you agree with that? You like that? You like the week 9, or would you rather have seen it go to another week?
Week 9 or week 10 doesn't really affect me much. I like it.
Yeah, KD, do you like the week 9 rule, or would you rather have seen it go to week 10?
No, I like it dead smack in the middle. Because again, we should be at a fork in the road, and that should be able to say, okay, look, you got to manage your teams. I wouldn't see the benefit of having a week 10 versus week 9. So I think the extra week will help out.
Okay, I like this rule, the emergency QB rule. I like that you can have your practice squad QB dressed as your emergency quarterback, as opposed to your punter or your running back or your lineman or your tight end. I believe that for a competitive fairness, I think that if you have 3 quarterbacks rostered, you should be able to dress all 3 in case of an emergency. I only think that that's fair. I don't think teams should have to rely on either a quarterback who can't throw the ball or a running back, or somebody who's not familiar with the position. So I like that rule. Anybody have any dissenting opinion about that? Okay, declaring players. Oh, were you going to say something?
He isn't on the 53-man roster already. I mean, you got 53 guys out there.
Well, the third string quarterback is because you only dress 48 for the game roster. So your emergency quarterback, I believe, will not count as the 48, but he will come in as an emergency player. But he'll be dressed for the game, but he won't count as part of the 48 that you dress for the game. So you'll dress 49 guys with your third string quarterback. So basically, it becomes 49 players.
Okay, but if you didn't allow that, you know, what would Jamie Foxx have done in any given Sunday? He was the third quarterback. He was out there. He was dressed. I mean, that's a problem. Where are we going to get movies from? Go ahead. I digress.
Right. Anyway, so declaring players who did not travel, proposed by Buffalo. The league approved the resolution to make the injury reporting rules for players who do not travel with their clubs to games away from their home city competitively fairer. So you have to declare players who did not travel. Is that what I'm understanding, Katie?
Yes. So again, like, so for instance, the emergency QBs and declaring players who did not travel kind of ties in. So again, let's say, hey, I got a quarterback issue. One of my guys didn't travel. I can use the emergency quarterback situation, bring old boy with me. But now the issue is this, though, you got to declare them sooner so where that particular person can be called up, and then now they can go out and compete. Because I can't remember who it was. I think it was the Jets or the Browns. Somebody played out of quarterback.
Didn't that happen with Deshaun Watson or something?
It was somebody. I'm pretty sure it's Cleveland. I think it's Cleveland that, because they got quarterbacks that was injured, and then they forced Baker Mayfield to play because they didn't have an emergency quarterback situation to where they can have somebody to come in and play that game.
Gotcha. Okay, and now, Katie, I'm going to let you explain this, the Hawkeye feed. So tell me what that is again.
So the Hawkeye feed is basically if you were to take let's say the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, and you basically put 4 cameras, and these cameras are basically network type of cameras, and they're basically going to be zoomed in on the game and following along with the game. So in the event of some kind of replay or whatever it may be, it automatically sync up those 4 cameras as that particular play happened, and it'll send it to said tablet. So let's say referee on the left side of the field requests this particular footage, and he can get that particular footage and within seconds make a decision of, hey, this is indeed what happened, or this is indeed what did not happen. And you basically eliminate the whole call to New York type of thing, or minimize it at best. Because again, it's also weather dependent. So like for instance, if hey, the weather's bad and they can't get an actual good view with the human eye, they probably say, okay, look, all right, let's use these particular things and with New York and see what New York got to say about it, and then they'll go from there. So,
gotcha. So basically, this is going to be a 24 preseason experiment with full implementation for the following year. So
yes. Now the kicker of this is going to be the layout of the stadiums also, because obviously you got some bigger, taller stadiums in statue. Like SoFi is the main one right now. Like obviously it goes up vertically, but to some of the smaller ones that just goes out wider and then kind of gradually go up, you probably won't get that good angle like you're looking for. So it's going to be one of those things. It's like some trial and error. You may have to have some extensions put on to the actual stadium itself for it to work.
What about will they be able to run the cam as part of the Hawkeye? The
Sky cam?
They have the overhead like for Monday Night Football.
Yeah. So you're talking about like the drone, like almost like the drone camera.
Yeah, the one that hangs on that.
Yeah, that'll still be this right here is the top of the stadium type of camera.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, it'll be top of the stadium type of camera zoomed in, and it'll basically again triangulate what's going on to where you can basically say, okay, look, if we need to review something, we get it from all those 4 different angles.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Now, my big question quick about that is, I'm sorry to interrupt, but will it be able to stitch together the same frames? Because that is key.
Yes.
That's what football is missing.
Yes.
So, okay, we can see at this point, his knee is down, and this is exactly where the ball is. Okay,
it'll be all multiple.
It's about time we do something like this.
So essentially what they're going to do is they're going to create another press box entity for the coaches there. So for instance, hey, if me and you guys work with the Broncos, we will have this system readily available to us if we wanted to challenge something.
All right, that's cool. Now the one rule that I would like to see implemented is if there are reviewable plays or plays that are subject to review or anything, I would like to see like where the referee, like between all plays, no matter what, that they have to stand over the ball for 3 seconds before the team can run up and huddle or can run up and snap the ball, for like instead of them just making the play, hurry up, run to the huddle and try to snap it before they take a look at it, because I think it would give at least the coaches and the other team an advantage to at least be able to look at that play with that camera, depending on how quick they get the footage from the drone camera into the coach's box, to make sure that those plays are reviewed. So again, that's something to think about. That's just my opinion, but you don't have to think about it. That's just my opinion.
I don't like that because if you're going to make a decision, it's the human element. Okay. I'd like you to, if you're going to sit there every play, you could sit there and hold 3 seconds and you could.
I'm talking about the plays that, like, we know what plays are.
Yeah, but ideally, you're making more judgment onto the official to make those decisions, and I don't like that. I like the idea of after the play happens that you need to be on your toes as a coach and as a replay staff. If you're making $500,000 as a replay staff, you better be watching the entire game and ready to go.
Well, sure. No, I get all that, but I'm saying if they're I guess that's why this is a good like preseason thing, just to make sure that that video feed that comes from the drone footage is perfectly accessible to those coaches, like instantaneously. Like they're basically watching it from the drone camera while the play's happening.
It's literally a 4-screen setup, and it's in the coach's booth.
Oh, okay. All right, I got it.
So the camera itself is not in the coach's booth.
Oh, okay.
The feed is being fed into the coach's booth. So again, if I got to hire 2 more people on my staff to maintain this thing and watch it, that's what their job is to do.
All right.
Because if you're a replay guy and you're watching the game, you're wrong.
All right. So basically, it's going to be like how New York was set up anyway, where they would call down to the official and say, yo, blow the play dead. Okay. Right. I get it.
I think we have the Steelers hire Eric, and he can litigate the whole game.
Oh,
I tell you, I would be writing all kinds of angry letters, and I'm all for that.
No, Eric could never work for an NFL organization, team, officials, anything, because this guy, he'd get fired just because he's a pain in the ass. They'd be like, shut up.
That's right. I have to deal with all the bing, bing, bing on the chat thing.
Now, could you imagine Eric would be at the game chatting everybody. So, all right, so we're going to wrap it up. Sean, do you have anything you would like to end with?
Yes. Paul, thank you for coming on tonight, and thank you for putting up with us. You do every week. We would love to have you back again anytime, please. And any other fans out there, come on, let's talk about your team. I mean, we haven't talked about the Saints for, at all. So, Paoli, get on here. Talk about your Eagles. Everyone else, come on. You see, we're just a bunch of idiots. So, we're still more accurate than Skip Bayless and Stephen A. and Coward, all those people. We have as much to say, and we're smarter than they are because we typically tend to be right. So, Paul, thank you. I appreciate you coming on and spending the time. Hello to your little one, and we hope to see you back.
Paul, anything you'd like to add before you take off out of here?
No. Thanks for having me. And with the news of Aaron Donald retiring, I will say everyone's saying he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Put Simeon Rice in then. That's all I have to say.
True. Very true. Eric, anything to add before we take off?
I have nothing to add. I enjoy all the hate coming down from even Sean, even though I'm a big-time Jets supporter, Sean. The hate, I can feel it. And ideally, I'll see you boys on the chat. That will not change. And have a happy Wednesday, everybody.
He who hates litigates.
Litigation. But no, listen, Eric, I'm just letting you know. First of all, there is no hate. We do this out of love, okay? And you're looking more and more like Sean McDermott every day. I just wanted to let you know that. So you have that to look forward to. Because I see going to the gym, you're losing some weight, so you don't have the Brian Dable roundness. You're getting more of the chiseled jaw with the beard thing, man. So good on you.
So, Dave, real quick, I would lead your Bills to a Super Bowl before Sean McDermott.
Probably. I think Sean could, and that's saying something. Sorry, Sean. Oh, you're here. I'm sorry. I thought you were muted. Wait, no, that I'd have to be muted. But no. So the only thing I really want to say, again,
I could do it.
Besides what we're doing for the show that I've already talked about, we hear it from the couch. I know we don't have a lot of listeners right now, but we do want to send our prayers to the people of Baltimore after what happened on that bridge. That was awful. That is going to decimate that city for quite a while, having to rebuild that bridge. And also dealing with just the shipping, there's jobs that are going to be lost, or at least people are going to be temporarily laid off, trying to get all that straightened back up. So our prayers to everybody in Baltimore, Baltimore strong. You are in our thoughts always, and we wish you nothing but Godspeed and rebuilding and getting back on your feet as soon as possible. So everybody from all of us here from the couch, for me, Eric, Katie, Sean, Paul, Jeff, you all have a great Wednesday, and we will see you again next Wednesday. You have something else to say, Katie? I'm sorry. I forgot.
I never said anything.
You started two, and then we went back to slide number 2.
It's okay. It's fine. Wow.
Go ahead, Katie.
So you already said the thing about Baltimore. It's fine. All right. Right, Sean. Right. Yeah. Hey, look, right now is a really, really good time to be an NFL fan because this is the time to where, hey, you can actually look out at some of the prospects that not the top 10 guys. You can kind of dig in the weeds of some of the things that your team needs. You can kind of do your own research. So therefore, again, like I said in the past, when your team selects said player, you're not throwing stuff at your TV inadvertently. You kind of know what that player is because that particular player, although they don't come from Alabama or Georgia or USC or Florida, they may be, a all-pro type of player or on their way to having a Hall of Fame career. So again, do your research. Stop throwing fits and temper tantrums like somebody in the middle of this screen does a lot. And then just accept what your team picks. And then that way you guys are kind of abreast. But when it comes down to, hey, okay, this particular guy is going to give me something that I'm looking for on Sunday evenings or even Thursday afternoons.
All right, folks. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday. Eric, Katie, and Sean, stay on the feed after we go off for a minute. But again, thank you for all of you for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 Arizona time, 5 Pacific.
5 Arizona time.
Yeah, that's right. 5.
It's tough.
Man, 5. Daylight savings time sucks. You people need to keep your clocks set at the same damn time.
Don't get it dealt.
All right. Y'all be good. Have a great night.
Night.